Tarun just asked everybody if it's okay to record. Okay, I can see a few people joining, so still waiting a bit. Just one more minute before we start introducing a few things. All right, I'm gonna start slowly, and either way, like the first part is just introducing so people can join. Welcome to the second meeting of the Machine Learning Community of Practice. Thanks, Komathi and Tarun, for organizing these events. My name is Anastasios. I'm coming from Intersect. I know a lot of faces already here, and I'm the e-research training manager and lead research data scientist there. And I'm going to chair today's meeting as we go through the slides and then the discussion. So quickly to give you an idea about the agenda, Tarun already shared with all of you. So there are going to be a few presentations and then there's going to be an open discussion. So the theme today is training in machine learning and challenges. So we're going to talk a bit about what's happening in different organizations around training and universities. And then we're going to have some more open discussion around the challenges that we face in these kind of topics. So before we start, I would like to acknowledge and celebrate the first Australians on these traditional lands we meet, and we pay our respects to the elders past and present. We extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders people joining us today. A few useful links and hashtags. So Tarun, as I said, shared the agenda. So we're going to have some presentations. Tarun already added in the chat the meeting agenda and the slide deck. There are a few hashtags for social media if you would like to mention. So please feel free to use all these. Here we're going to start with one of the last slides that we had last in the first actual meeting, where we asked all the participants what challenge do we want to focus on in the next meeting. And training was in the middle, as you can see, popping up and being one of the important challenges that a lot of people wanted to discuss. So that's why this meeting is focusing on training. So I'm going to hand over to Komathi to speak a bit about the ML skills gap and in general, like what's happening at Monash. Over to you, Komathi.
Thanks, Anastasios, and thanks for agreeing to chair this meeting. I think it'd be good to have wider presence and wider chairs rather than a single particular group doing it. So thanks for coming up. Like we winded up the last community of practice, I think the whole idea of this is to bring diverse group, start looking at challenges and come up with smaller approaches and smaller low-hanging fruit. What can we tackle and kind of resolve them? And also identify what are the bigger challenges that we all can work collaboratively over a period of time. I think that's the whole focus of this community of practice. So the coming back to the training, I think I kind of spoke about this in the last session as well, where most of this started when we kind of did one of the RDC discovery projects back in 2019, where Monash and UQ went and surveyed around 120 researchers nationally, trying to understand what are the key challenges in applying machine learning to their research. So came up with multiple questions. The kind of the graphs that you see there is probably a few, but there were so many aspects and so many questions that were asked as part of that survey. some of the significant ones that came out of that is key challenges. It was not at all very, it's not diverse at all. Like if you look at it, there are hardly three well-defined challenges where what people faced in terms of applying machine learning, and obviously skills is one of that biggest challenge that people face. Capacity of the hardware, Hans said, has always been a challenge, and I think that needs a whole a lot of sessions to just discuss how we can get more capacity on the hardware. The data quality or access to the data for various reasons, again, is one of the key challenge. Most of the time, getting hold of that data in order to build the models itself is challenging. Could be due to the privacy, could be due to the quality of data not suitable, could be due to all the effort that has to go on labeling the data before that can be used. So there's so many other identified challenges on data quality and access. So, and apparently if we just go a bit down, trying to understand how these researchers identified themselves as in terms of the expertise in ML and where they sit, there are significant number of people who have identified them as intermediate and expert, but need more exposure to practical aspects of machine learning. That's what they wanted to learn about. And there are groups who wanted to see, now we're doing it, but we wanted to use HPC efficiently because it's one of those constrained resources. So there are quite some insights into the challenges faced by the community. Tarun, next slide, please. Thanks. So following that activity, there was a survey. Again, this project group put together to again to collect some information on how specifically the gaps in knowledge or gap in training, available training, how we can address it. So this is again survey from last year, 2020, and kind of picked up and said, there is lack of knowledge, and we understand, but there are unfamiliarity with tools. We need to understand what tools and packages are available, how we can use it, and how we can use it on our particular environments. Lack of people, where no, I don't have an hands-on expertise who can come and do it in my research group, and that's probably not my focus area. I need someone to come and help us out. So there were few significant one which came out, but most of the time it's more about having some sort of awareness on ML concepts and available tools and packages. Next slide, please. So based on that, what probably are the areas of interest and training has been arrived. This doesn't probably speak about all the introductory courses that has to be in place, but what is specific interest in deep learning? And this kind of gives us an insight on what kind of training programs as a project team that we need to develop. And most of our roadmap and training development has been based on this. I put this out here more as a point of a conversation started, but I think it's more to start thinking about how do we want to start looking at what are the future needs in terms of trainings, how do we address it collectively, and how do we bring awareness of what's already existing, so that everyone is aware what's available elsewhere with another organization. Either we can, though we can't attend directly, is there something which we can leverage out of it? Probably we can ask those trainers to come and train the other organization. So first is bringing that awareness of what's available so that we can start looking at what is the real gap in available training landscape and focus on that rather than probably looking at developing more and more introductory courses. The one slide which I've not put here is more pointing to ARDC skills landscape as well. So there's been multiple versions of that skills landscape, but there's one section which is data use skills, and most of this maps back to data use skills and could be diverse, right? So when it's not just data analysis methods, but what in terms of accessibility to your data, what in terms of how do you preserve your privacy of your data while doing machine learning. So I would think that as we mature through this journey, we can start looking at other areas within the skills landscape, which is directly related to ML, and start addressing that, but really need some sort of collective thinking on what do we want to address? What is our roadmap into how do we want to look at these trainings and what is immediately going to benefit us and what is something that we need to work on a long term. And I would think that most of this would come up in the discussion today. That's all from me. I'm going to hand over back to Anastasios.
Thanks a lot, Kamathi, for all this information. I think it's very useful to know a bit more about like targeted challenges and which areas need more focus. So I'm gonna hand over to Titus to speak about the kernel training that is happening at Monash.
Thanks, Anastasios. So my name is Titus. I'm a deep learning engineer on the Monash Data Science and AI platform. So of the many things that the Data Science and AI platform does, one of it is the development and running of various machine learning workshops, both internally at Monash and also nationally. And by nationally, I mean workshops that are open for all to attend for free. So I just want to take this opportunity to create some awareness of the various workshops that we run, and to emphasize that all the workshop materials that are listed here is publicly available with a Creative Commons license. So you are free to take our workshops, modify it as you wish, and to use them to run your own trading activities. So listed here are the few of the workshops that we have. Getting started with deep learning, a very high overview of how you would get into the field and understand the field. We have some introductory courses such as Introduction to Deep Learning and TensorFlow, and for natural language processing. We have intermediate courses or advanced courses such as semi-supervised deep learning. And we have a new course coming up in later this year, Deep Learning on HPC, a course that teaches researchers who already have experience with deep learning on how to utilize HPC to accelerate their model training. So we also conduct various train-the-trainer events for all these workshops that we have up here, because as a team, we are limited in the number of trainings that we are able to conduct across a year, not just at Monash, but also nationally. So we are very eager to help in the process of upskilling various instructors and teaching assistants to be able to repeat these trainings at their own local institutions. So just a bit of a shout out for upcoming events. If you like to have a taste of the activities that we run, we have a national level semi-supervised deep learning workshop running on the 23rd of June. Do keep an eye out and ear out for our registration announcements. I'm running a lecture with Biocommons, hosted by Biocommons, on the Getting Started with Deep Learning lecture. And we will also be having our inaugural Deep Learning on HPC workshop sometime in July or August. So there's a just quick overview of the training activities at Monash. I hand it back to Anastasios.
Thanks, Titus. Very useful. I'm gonna hand over to Nick to speak about UQ and QCIF.
Great, thanks very much for that. So I'm Nick Hamilton. I run a small group doing machine learning and bioimage analysis at the Institute for Molecular Bioscience and at the University of Queensland, and I also have a co-appointment with the Research Computing Centre at UQ. And I've been looking after some of the machine learning training at UQ and at QCIF more generally across the universities in Queensland. So this last year has been absolutely fantastic in terms of developing and presenting course materials in the shared program with Monash. From the QCIF point of view, UQ, we ran some 7 training sessions with around 200 attendees in 2020. And with those, and together with the offerings from Monash, we had extraordinary interest in applicants for the places, up to 10 times more applicants than we had places. So there's definitely a huge demand out there for this sort of thing. As part of this, we've been developing shared course material, and as Titus just mentioned, Monash have been running Train the Trainer for UQ and other people's, and at UQ we've been, at least informally so far, and perhaps formally later on, been having Monash trainers attend our sessions to learn how we present. And more broadly, we're producing GitHub repositories where all of the materials are available. And as Kamathi mentioned before, we had surveys last year and earlier around needs in training in machine learning. And particularly focusing on Queensland for a while, at the 6 universities, we sampled 99 people. And it was the overwhelming response was that people just wanted to get started with machine learning. They were very excited about it, but they didn't really know how to get started. And also a very large number of them had image analysis problems that they wanted to approach, possibly because, sorry, slide please. So in response to that, we've been developing new course material. The first one I actually just presented for the 3rd time this morning, the Introduction to Machine Learning for Imaging, which is a 3-hour workshop with some 2 hours of practical exercises in ImageJ, which sort of covers the basic principles of machine learning and how to get started with it without any coding experience. It's really for complete beginners, particularly sort of biologists who are interested in the field. And as I said, we've run it 3 times now, some 87 attendees. And it's been very, very popular. The Net Promoter Score is 100% so far. And one wonderful participant this morning said it was the best workshop they'd been to for a very, very, very long time. So that made me smile. And the other course around this we've been developing is advanced machine learning for image segmentation using UNet. So UNet is one of the more advanced methods for image segmentation at the moment. So this is for advanced users who also already have plenty of machine learning and Python experience. It's a 3-hour workshop, very much practical with lots of TensorFlow code and runs in Colab. And that's been written now, and shortly I should be presenting it soon. Slide, please. So the other way we've been trying to understand the needs of the community is by doing machine learning case studies. And so far we've completed 2 case studies, the first of which, cryofilter, was around a deep learning solution to find protein structures using EM cryoimaging. So the EM cryoimaging is used to solve protein structures, which is used to in drug design and all sorts of other things like that. And so a person, Gavin Rice, came and talked to me about this, and we ran it as a health hack problem, which I'll talk about in a minute, and came up with a solution for him. We wrote that up. Another growing area in machine learning is visualization for machine learning, because the data sets are becoming huge. It's difficult to interact with the data sets and find the things you need. And so we've got a case study around that. In upcoming case studies, we've got 2, the first of which is around machine learning for brain imaging. This is one of the massive growth areas in terms of data sets. They've got more data than they know what to do with. And so one of the power users, Stefan Bollman here at University of Queensland, I'm sort of studying what he does, how he uses the tools, how he develops his pipelines and so on, to better understand the needs. And at the other end of the spectrum, I'm currently doing a case study around a completely new user who's come to me to talk about a problem they have. They've got some Python and R experience, never done any machine learning, but they want to get started with machine learning and start using it to analyze their images and set up pipelines and so on. So that's sort of the other end of it. In terms of other support, over the last year, we've been running Hacky Hour and continue to run Hacky Hour, which is a community-run support event for machine learning, high-performance computing, data science, and other problems. And we ran some 42 sessions in 2020 with 541 participants. Slide, please. And finally, in terms of outreach and sort of building communities of practice, last year we ran an event called Health Hack, which ran over 2 weekends virtually in July and August. Usually it's run in previous years as well. I'm usually running in the real world, and we were hoping that we might run again in the real world again, but it's not looking very likely. Good luck, Melbourne. Anyway, so last year we ran it. So what we do is we go out and we find problem owners, people who've got problems in health and research sectors, and then we put them together with a community of solvers from the university, commercial and health sectors over 2 weekends in that case. And this time we found 2 machine learning problems from UQ, cryofilter, which I just mentioned before, and another based around Auslan, which was about creating databases of images and communities around sign language videos and being able to use machine learning to identify what was going on in those sign language things. So it's a great event for skill sharing and upskilling of participants, and basically building a community of practice, bringing together the commercial sectors and university sectors has been absolutely fantastic, because they've all got different views on machine learning and approaches to things, and everybody learned a lot from that. And we're going to be running again in 2021, and we'll see how we go in terms of real or virtual. And that's pretty much me. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. Very exciting things happening at UQ and QSIP, and I have to say that I wish I knew about this cryofilter problem when I was doing my PhD, because I was doing it on protein structure and molecular dynamic simulation. So I wish I had this before. So next one is Daria. Thanks, Daria, for joining and for willing to present everything that's happening there.
Yep, so good afternoon, everyone. I know that a lot of you know me, but for those that don't, I'll take a second to introduce who I am and where I'm coming from, which is a little bit different to the speakers before me. So my name is Daria. I am a data scientist and analytics training coordinator at something called the Sydney Informatics Hub, which is a core research facility of the University of Sydney. So unlike the people who've spoken previously, a lot of my work is specifically focused and facing the researchers only at one institution, which is the University of Sydney. So the way we do our training and some of the ways we approach material sharing is a little bit different to what's been spoken before. So in terms of what we've done, so we have, as part of our data science training program, we actually have in 2019, we piloted and developed 2-day workshops in machine learning in R and machine learning in Python. And we've had, well, somewhat over 150 researchers come through those since that time. And this is actually quite a few workshops, as we accommodate about 20 to 25 people per workshop. So this is quite a few runs. We've also had, in addition to that, we have run as part of some of our partner training in the schools, we've got some modules on natural language processing for business and for health. And I think that the difference in model for us, for example, is a lot of these materials for us are closed. So we cannot open them and just can't do that. So the approach that we've taken to contribute to the community instead is we actually are able to offer our training, quote unquote, commercially, where another organization brings us in and we deliver it for them for a small fee, which is, again, it's not that big relative to the number of people, which allows us then to sort of upskill people outside of our institutions. So it's a slightly different model versus the sort of open source stuff that has been discussed before. Next slide, please. The next thing I thought I wanted to talk about was what have we found with machine learning training in the space, and sort of where we are at and where we're going. So the strength of having machine learning training is actually that it's exciting, it's interesting, it's popular, it really attracts a large number of researchers. So we do have, as has been mentioned before, a lot of demand. Everybody wants to come in and get this training. It's really, really great. So when we open up a course, lots and lots of people register. So that's, I guess, the strengths. It's exciting, people love it. Next slide, please. But there are a few challenges. So the first challenge is, as again has been mentioned before, is data availability. So not all of our researchers have appropriate data for machine learning, and those that do may not know how to work with it. And that's, again, the coding skills aspect. So they may have the right data, but they may not know what to do with it and not have the time to upskill in that. Another really interesting one we run into is actually this concept of publishability, because obviously all of our researchers, the core thing that they need to do is they need to publish. And unfortunately, in a lot of fields, machine learning is still something very new. And researchers are like, I just need to teach us. I can't actually use machine learning for my paper. It's like this nice little supplement that goes to the end, but I'm not quite sure how to actually get it to get a high impact publication, which is at the end of the day what they want. And something else which I know will be alluded to later today is, of course, trainer knowledge. These are pretty technically advanced skills. So developing some of the more niche courses does require us to either liaise with partners in the school or to really work with people who have backgrounds in the area, which may not be accessible to a lot of institutions. Next slide, please. Yep, so in terms of opportunities that we have in the space right now, it is an exciting space to be working in because we do have the ability to make really good impacts on people's papers. So some of the situations where we've worked with people on projects, this has gotten them new papers, new directions for their research, and just really, really exciting new cool projects. And that's why, again, that's why this is so popular. That's why this is so interesting. So it's among the things that we do, it's one of the easiest ways we can make an impact. And next slide, please. But the challenges we also see is researchers can attend our training. So as I said, 2-day training, wonderful. We really make sure to articulate and be explicit about the fact that you need to check a lot of the models. Like a machine learning algorithm, yes, it can be taken as a black box and you throw data in and something will come out. And this can be a problem because a researcher, if they're not careful, if they're not cautious, if they don't quite understand what they're doing, they can get a result that looks maybe okay, maybe not. And if they're not careful about how they then interpret this result and present it, they can actually publish the wrong conclusions, which is the last thing we want for researchers. So we find that even though, yes, we've got all this training, researchers will still come to us for consultations and projects and hacky hour style support and other things. Like 2 days is not enough basically for our training, which is again, different to some of the other trainings we run where it's like 2 days, they're in and out. Trainer turnover. So the people who have this knowledge that I talked about, trainer knowledge, they tend to be in high demand elsewhere as well. So we found that like for the people that piloted the course, for example, with me in 2019, I think only one of them is still at SIH because they've gone on to different roles in industry and the commercial space. So this means that even a lot of the upskilling initiatives that people have don't quite have the necessary effect. We have to keep upskilling people to be trainers. And finally, something we've run into as well, which is interesting, is this notion of what I've called magic self-learning. So some of the university administrators that we've seen, the really higher up people sitting sort of in the vice chancellor levels, actually have articulated an idea that, well, everybody's doing this data science digital stuff. We're going to just hire people into the faculties who do this, and they're going to magically upskill everyone around them in this space. So everybody's going to be doing data science and digital research. And we're like, but that's not how, like, internally I'm going, that's not how this works. But this is a vision that unfortunately a lot of the people at the top have, which can make it a very tricky space to operate in because it's hard to demonstrate that we're still relevant. So in summary, that's the sort of the landscape of where our machine learning training is and what I see to be sort of where we are today and what's going to be shaping this field for us for the next couple of years. So thank you.
Thanks, Daria. Very interesting points. Actually, I really like the connection between the training and the post-training support, that these two are correlated and they're going together actually. So if you want a smooth transition, and I really like this magic self-learning, I'm really curious to see how this can happen actually. All right.
It can't, but that's the vision, right?
Yes, exactly. Well, let's see. Thank you very much. Next one is Kim, who's presenting about the data fluency and the training that's happening there.
Hi everyone, I am here. Oh, I can't see myself on the screen. This is odd. Okay, there I am. Hi, now sorry, I'm a bit late to the party, so I can talk about the more broad data fluency sessions that we do, because Kamathi is very involved in the machine learning session, so I feel like so I guess maybe it's the what are the main things that you want me to talk about, Teron and Kamathi?
I think data fluency has been running these trainings for quite some time, and even all the ML trainings that we do is delivered through data fluency. So we good to hear about general challenges. I understand that ML specific challenges are like what Daria spoke or others spoke, but if you can just give an overview of what's the scale of training that's happening in data fluency and what are the specific challenges that you face as part of administering data fluency as well.
Okay, wonderful. That sounds great. And I will just say
that I'm sorry, it's a last minute invitation.
No, that's okay. And I will just say that my involvement with data fluency has been not continuous. So I work in the library and I was quite involved in the initial setup of the data fluency program. And then I was in other projects last year when the program really grew in a lot of areas, and now I've come back in this year. So I will talk as much as I can, but I'm sort of like, I don't know all of the details myself, having had that break. But yes, data fluency. It grew from a desire for some of the existing programs that had been running. From my understanding, mostly from the bioinformatics platform to begin with, around things like introduction to R, introduction to Python. These sessions were already being held mostly for researchers, but they were being run by ongoing staff, and they couldn't meet the demand. The sessions would be advertised and they would be all booked out in 10 minutes, and there was quite a lot of requests for more sessions. So, and again, this is my understanding of how it all went. So at that point, the library became involved because we could offer some specific things to help. So partly we could offer spaces. From memory also, this was back in 2018, the people who are running those introduction to art, introduction to Python sessions weren't always able to find appropriate spaces around the university. That was, pre-COVID, when everything was busy all of the time. And we could also provide some administrative support. A challenge, I guess, for data fluency and at Monash is we advertise our programs through a system called My Development, which is quite a complicated program. So PhD students who do these workshops obtain hours towards this Monash doctoral program, where they have to obtain 120 hours of professional development as part of their course, their PhD course. And that, that helps encourage PhD students to consider these workshops, but there's an administrative cost of taking attendances and getting it into the My Development system for people to get hours credited. And then we have the same system, but a different profile of the same system for the staff who register, the internal Monash staff. So yeah, My Development has a significant administrative cost, would be my summary. And so the library could help with that. And then the third thing that we helped with was recruiting and training and supervising the associate instructors, who are wonderful people who have really helped to grow the data fluency program. So alongside sort of ongoing staff who might run some of the sessions and things like the machine learning sessions, we have associate instructors who help answer questions on the Slack channel, help run some of the modules, so they co-teach some of the workshops. And for our introduction sessions like R and Python and Git and GitHub, they're now solely taught by associate instructors. So it's really helped us to grow the program without relying on a small number of ongoing staff. Is that enough information? Sorry.
I think it's all very useful, Kim.
I'm just a bit late, so sorry, running.
No worries at all. It's very useful information, and we know that it's a conjoint run of workshops there. We know that you're running all these general courses as well in other more popular courses as well, like Python R intro courses. So it's all very useful. Thank you very much. Komathi, do you want to have some more info, or are you? Okay,
I think Kim covered it. Yeah, all good.
Yeah,
thank you.
Perfect.
And thanks, Kim, for coming at the last minute.
No trouble.
All right, the last one is me actually presenting what's happening at Intersect. So for people who don't know who Intersect is, we're a not-for-profit organization, and we are a member-based. So we currently have 12 member universities. And one of the major things that we do is training. So last year, we delivered more than 350 workshops, and we train around 5,500 researchers across Australia. So we started exploring machine learning last year, and we start actually expanding as we go. We don't want to explore the big areas of more intermediate and advanced topics. So what we wanted to explore is what Nick said, so the getting started level. So people who have no idea about how to use these tools, and they know that machine learning is something exciting, but they don't know how to start and to know all the specifics. So we introduced 3 workshops. So 3 introduction to machine learning using Python workshops, where We have introduction and linear regression. We have next workshop, which is classification, and then support vector machine and unsupervised learning. This is a series of 3 workshops, so it's 2.5 days. And now we're developing the same series of 3 workshops in R, which is going to be ready in Q3. So we ran these 3 courses as a trial last year, where we had like almost 80 participants, but we had almost like more than 350 people on the waiting list. So this year already we have scheduled 16 courses, and all the courses are full with huge waiting lists, and still we haven't opened the R course. So I think it's going to be overwhelming this year as well. So that's what's happening here. So we're really interested in knowing a bit more about the challenges, and later on Kiova is going to talk about the trainers, which is one of the things that we found challenging. All right, so I'm gonna hand over to what is happening at the national training to Catherine. Thanks a lot, Catherine, for the last minute. Sorry, apologies for the last minute invite, but I think we see each other every week nowadays, and I see you more
sometimes more than once a week, actually.
It's really good to have you here, so I'll hand over to you.
Thanks, Anastasios. Hi, everybody. For folk who don't already know me, I'm Catherine Unsworth, and I work as part of the skilled workforce team at the Australian Research Data Commons, and I have the role of skills consultant. Next slide, please. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is probably, I guess, tangential to machine learning. So these are things that may be of interest to folk, and particularly training service providers. So I'm starting off, well, I'll start with how the Digital Research Skills Australasia, or DRESA, platform came to be, and it's not complete yet. We're still only in staging. But as part of the Skills Summit last year, we had a number of working groups that came out of, the various challenges in the training space, and the National Training Registry and Calendar Working Group was one of those working groups. And so we started working on ways in which we can start to expose training events, training materials, and hopefully we'll be able to have a training register as part of this platform too. So what is DRESA? I've just explained it, I guess. It's a registry, and I've highlighted registry because it's not a repository. It will aggregate, skills training events and training materials and information on trainers across Australia, and hopefully we can get our New Zealand folk involved in this as well, and maybe a little wider afield to other neighbours around Australia. One of the big questions was, where will DRESA live? And Pawsey have been fantastic, actually, via Anne Backhouse, and they have provided actually 3 months development funding, and we've had Nick May on board doing that development. And they're also going to provide an allocation on their AWS service for a year. They may be able to extend that out to 2 years to give us the opportunity to talk through consortium approaches. And, the National Training Registry Working Group will work through that. So some of the work that we've completed so far is that we've actually used, we've spun up an instance of TESS. Now, I don't know if people are aware of Elixir's TESS, their training portal, but we've created that instance in our staging, in a staging environment using Nectar VMs. And we can't sort of move into production until we get the domain name registration sorted out. And because we're going after an edu.au, there's kind of stricter rules around getting that kind of domain name. So crossing fingers and hoping that works out, but the registration has gone in, so we're just waiting for word on that. We've enabled authentication via AAF, and Nick at the moment is testing some web scrapers as well. And what might be useful into the future is working with some training service providers to test those scrapers. So keep your ear to the ground about that. And we've also worked through role feature authorizations that we've identified, and a whole heap of other work that has gone on. Next slide, please. So this is just a current look. You know, this is what it looks like at the moment, and it's still very, very much like the test site. So what we really need to start doing is some extensive rebranding of this site. So, you know, changing all of the images over to, you know, Australian contextual imaging, and, you know, getting all of the, you know, the different organisations that are involved, and all of that stuff. All the text has to be redone, and so there's quite a bit of work involved in that. We've been looking at user stories as well for search filtering and feature requirements. And I have to say that the Research Data Alliance, one of the groups, the working groups there, I think it's the Handling Research Data Working Group, Ming can probably tell me actually, they've actually done a series of, they've looked at this already, and they've got a series of user stories that we can borrow. So really nice when you don't have to reinvent the wheel for this sort of stuff. We've also been looking at minimum metadata, and also the more extended version of metadata. Daria and Anastasios have been involved in that as well. And we're concentrating on training events at the moment, but we will move into the training materials and hopefully look at trainer metadata as well down the track, and also getting our dictionary sorted out. And then I've already mentioned the domain name registration, and that's what we're hoping it will be. And there's been a whole heap of other stuff that's been going on as well. So we're currently wanting to use real events training data and to test the platform. So oh, of course my phone rings. So what I'm suggesting is that if you guys know of training materials that people would be happy, training events that people would be happy for us to put into the staging environment to test it, please let me know. It will only exist in the staging environment. It won't go across to production. So there's, you know, no drama about it, you know, being exposed more widely. But it's just that we need that sort of real data to test the metadata that we use, that the metadata form, and all the features and all of that sort of stuff. So that would be really useful if you could let me know about that sort of stuff. Next slide, thanks. So another part of what we've been doing, and before I sort of get too much into this slide, I'd like to put a shout out to the bioinformatics life sciences folk. I attended the first night of their education summit on Monday, and as part of the package of information that they provided, there was a list of templates. And so I've borrowed some of these and also incorporated some of the ones that ARDC have on their list that, you know, what we're looking at potentially producing. So the whole idea, I guess, behind developing templates is so that, you know, we start taking a much more sort of standard, or at least encouraging a more standard approach to developing and delivering skills training. And so some of these could potentially be useful to people, and, you know, including the machine learning community of practice. So I've just sort of listed some of them there for people to think about, go back to and think about. And if there's anything of real interest, please reach out to us, because we would love to work with people in developing some of these templates. I can tell you that the GitHub repo template, Matthias has already started working on one of those for courses and training. And we have a code of conduct that we could actually you know, create a template out for people so that they can then just plug in their own bits and pieces into a code of conduct to develop one. And I think also the bottom one there, community of practice kit, would be an interesting one to explore as well. And particularly for this group, we could use it as a test case. Next slide, thanks. Still on the same train of thought in terms of co-design and co-development of training. What we, you know, we're always so we're to explain a little bit more further. Sorry, my phone is playing up something and I can't concentrate. So the thing that we're trying to do is, because we're not a training organisation at ARDC as such, but we can and do have the capacity to work with others in co-designing and co-developing training. So it would be interesting for us to explore what we could actually do with the machine learning community of practice in terms of co-designing some training. What we've been working on currently with some materials that we're developing is we've started working on a checklist for making training materials fair, and there's a whole range of other stuff that's happening elsewhere across the globe in this area as well. So we're reaching out to various people to talk to them about what they're doing and see how we can sort of incorporate all of our efforts together. We've started also on a video for containers, and this is purely the basics. So we're aiming this at researchers who have no technical knowledge, and we just want to get containers into their vocabulary and into their thinking. Data governance, which is a fairly tricky sort of and very expansive type topic. We've started work scoping out that work potentially to produce a video again, a kind of explain a video, but we're looking at focusing on digital research infrastructures, so data governance for that group, and also for projects, so data governance at a project level. The other thing is Fair Data 101. So we've run 2 lots of courses for Fair Data 101, an 8-week course and then a 4-week course. And now what we're trying to do is to actually distill that, you know, what's come out of those 2 courses into an hour course. So it will be really sort of very, very basic and very targeted approach to fair data. Then I was thinking about, well, what are the potential opportunities that we could open up for the machine learning community? And I was just wondering, and this is a question, you know, whether there are machine learning use cases that you've identified currently, and could ARDC and the community of practice look at co-developing some profiles or scenarios and some learning paths that go along with those. So that may be too big a task, but I'm just putting that question out to the community of practice. And I feel that this kind of work could really help in identifying where those skills training gaps are for machine learning practitioners and those emerging in that area as well. And I also wondered whether, you know, data governance through an ML lens might be a useful focus as well. And then also looking at fair principles through an ML lens. And it might be the opposite to that. It might be looking at machine learning through the lens of fair principles. So, and any other sorts of things that people might think are, you know, a useful thing to work on that we could potentially help produce as well. Next slide. So the Australian Research Data Commons seems to also have a growing interest in machine learning, even though it's always been there. But we are looking at building internal capability and expertise. And Ming is on the call today, so she is Senior Research Data Specialist, and she's also the lead for the Environments to Accelerate Machine Learning Based Discovery project. And she's a machine learning practitioner herself. We also have Shada Hadavi in Canberra, who's the e-research data systems analyst, and she's actually used machine learning techniques in transport-related research that she was doing, I think, in Brussels. So, and we're also looking at recruiting an engagements person in New South Wales with an AI specialist background. So we're crossing fingers and hoping that will work out. And of course, also the Australian Research Data Commons is supporting the machine learning community of practice in any way that we can. The next slide. And the other thing to sort of bring to your attention as well is the Skills Summit for this year. And we're running it as an integrated event with the eResearch conference. So it'll be the middle day, so the 13th of October. And I've just listed some of the objectives that the Skills Summit is looking to achieve. And of course, we're sort of wanting to use the agenda for the Skills Summit to look at once again where we've moved on from last year to now in terms of achievements and challenges, and we'll use it also as a space for celebrating and highlighting the achievements of each of the 4 working groups. And we hope to have an announcement also about the Australian Carpentries Consortium and release that at the Skills Summit. And of course, hopefully we can, but given what's happening in Melbourne, where I am currently situated, we can't really foresee whether we can actually be in person at this stage, but trying to work out ways that we can actually network with as skills practitioners. And a number of other objectives as well. So you can see there's 2 emerging technologies, looking at what's happening in that space, and certainly machine learning is, even though it's not necessarily, it's been around for a long time, but there are methodologies that are emerging in that space too. So and I think Kamathi mentioned earlier on about the skills landscape, and I haven't put a slide in about that. But yes, certainly that's an area that we can work more closely with the machine learning community of practice as well. And I've got an open question there. Would the machine learning community of practice be interested in participating in the 2021 Skills Summit? And to have a think about how you might be involved. And I think that's pretty much it from me.
Thanks, Catherine. Very useful, very exciting things happening at the RDC and at the national level. About the last question, I think most of us are already participating in the Skills Summit, so it would pretty much be actually like a bit more.
Actually, Catherine, thanks. I think you gave a lot of insights to what's happening, and in fact, you put a lot of question back to us. I think we need to handle all that question answers to your question. But significant one. I think the anything that we can support towards the training environment, the test implementation here. Please do let. I know that there's already a working group there. But do please give a shout out when you need some support or help there. The community of practice templates, out of all the templates, that's something I would definitely appreciate, right? I think we had this conversation a few times, more in terms of more structured approach to connect more groups. I mean, even in ML Corp, what I see is how there are so many other groups who are interested. It's just that we need to create that awareness, bring more communication, connect groups together. Which probably will need more support and more groups coming together to discuss this. So some sort of framework around that would definitely help to do things faster.
Yeah, well, I can let you know too that we've currently been working on it's called community facilitators rather than communities of practice, but it's a strategy for within ARDC, but there's nothing secret squirrel about it, so it could be shared more widely once it has been completely finalised. But it could be something that could be built on by others in terms of, particularly around resilience and sustainability of communities of practice, because that's incredibly important. So yes, I will share that as that becomes available.
And I mean, the ML Corp is also probably good, is also a good use case if you want to take that and trial it on, right? So
yeah, absolutely. absolutely.
And in terms of the opportunities, I think most of the questions that you put around and the potential opportunities, I would think that would come up in discussion today during the discussion session. There are a few things which we already spoke about more in terms of how we can, what are those specific challenges that we can kind of address, low-hanging fruits, identify them, what kind of approach we can take to address them, but also start looking at what is that long-term thing that we need to identify and address. I think that would answer some of your questions around the opportunities that you put there. Yeah, Skill Summit is again another question. We will be presenting at C3DIS about the community of practice. And we've always, I mean, this group together has come together, at least the organizing committee has come together and has always thought that we should do something more focused towards ML, probably half a day, whatever it is. So we keep that attention together rather than scattering it across the e-research or Skill Summit. So I think we will get back to you on how we want to participate there. But there are, I mean, you'll also hear at the end of this session that there are many upcoming events, specifically on showcase activities that's planned throughout the next few months. Yeah, so some of them would feed directly into how we participate in the Skill Summit and e-research.
Yeah, well, I think we also discussed at one point, Kamathi, correct me if I'm wrong, about the potential for maybe a satellite event. So,
Exactly.
you know, so that could be something that this group could think about. Yeah.
Sorry, Kamathi and Catherine. Just because like we are running late, yeah, we can definitely discuss all these things also in the next part, which is going to be the open discussion. Okay, let's quickly go to the next one, which is Mei Yun. Really good to have you here. Another exciting initiative. So I'll hand over to you to talk about the graduate education program.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Mei Yun Ching Smith. So it's my pleasure to give you a very brief background with the upcoming HPC and data course in materials. And so the graduate education program at Intersect was launched in January this year. The main purpose is to create and coordinate and manage a pilot program for online collaborative teaching into graduate level courses by renowned professors and scientists. And the main focus be on the application of HPC and data into various research domains. And I believe that the initiative can be a very powerful vehicle providing significant benefits in higher quality teaching, broader and deeper exposure for PhD students, and more efficient use of teaching time for professors. Next slide. So in the past few months, we've been working on, we've been planning a 13-week semester-long course in HPC and data in materials design and discovery. So we aim to launch the course either later this year or in the first semester of 2022. And the course will be free for PhD students and early career researchers who currently enrolled in or working at the Australian university. The lectures will be delivered live via Zoom webinars. And last but not least, the NCA as a tier 1 HPC provider in Australia will be very instrumental in providing HPC introduction, collaborative editorial sessions, and expertise for the course. So currently we have the organizing committee, including 5 universities, namely Professor Deborah Bernhardt from UQ, Professor Julian Gale from Curtin University, and Professor Sean Smith from ANU, and Professor Tiffany Welsh from Deakin, and also like Dr. Asaf from University of Sydney. And so for more information later on, you could find from Intersect education page. You could have, you can find registration and syllabus later on when we get closer to the launch. And that's all I had to say about the graduate education course. And I would like to pass the microphone to the Dr. Jingbo Wang, the training manager at NCI, who is going to give you a brief summary of the first NCI and Intersect showcase in materials, which was held quite successfully on 13th of May. Jingbo.
Thanks, Meiyun. Thanks for the intro and thanks for the background. So this event is really kind of a graduate course to raise the profile and raise interest across Australian community. We are very lucky to have 4 prestigious university professors talking about leading edge material science design discovery using ML. And 2 of the professors from California. One is from Zurich, the other one is ANU, the College of Computer Science and Engineer. The showcase ran over 4 hours, with each speaker talking about 50 minutes with Q&A. Certainly throughout these 4 hours, a lot of interest has been generated and a lot of interesting questions about machine learning and the future direction in terms of finding new material using the AI technology. So the whole showcase was extremely well received. As you can see on the right hand of the slides, we kind of had a kind of group of attendees from across Australia. So we want to get a sense of where are the most interested group are. The other thing I just wanted to mention in terms of the machine learning education and training from NCI perspective is that most of the machine learning application now kind of start getting very high demand on resource, especially data storage and compute. And also a lot of deep learning architecture will achieve the best performance on GPU, which are the hardware and services that NCI could provide to our user. So 2 keywords in terms of the challenge of the machine learning training is that awareness and collaboration. So awareness is that I'm not sure this is a strong argument, but I do feel some domain that Australian research community is a little bit kind of either catching up the US and European research community or kind of still stay tuned and just looking for opportunity and collaboration. And there are pioneers in European and Europe, and they've done quite a good of work. So I wanted to introduce those pioneers' work from international prestigious speakers to Australian community. And the second keyword is the collaboration. Because we are serving the same Australian research community from different university and sectors, but our kind of audience or users probably share the same demand of and interest on machine learning. So collaboration is really a keyword that I would quote an African proverb that if you wanted to go quickly, go alone. If you wanted to go far, go together. So I think the example that the collaboration between NCI and Intersect is a perfect example that by joining the efforts together, we kind of making a much more wider impact across Australian research community. Same wise, by collaborating with Monash and the UQ and the ARDC, POSI, and other HPC and compute providers, I believe that we will make something pretty exciting in the future. So that's the update from me.
Thanks, Meiyun, and thanks, Jingbo. I totally agree, and I'm really happy that we have people from all these organizations and universities here today to contribute and present what's going on, but also like to collaborate together to move forward and faster, as you said, which is really important because I think we're falling behind. This machine learning kind of topic, it was a trend a few years back, right? And it took us a few years to come up and even have this kind of discussion. So really important. So I'm gonna take this what you said about GPUs and all these amazing infrastructure. And I'm gonna hand over to Titus to talk a bit about industry training and partnerships and talk a bit more about NVIDIA and GPUs. Titus, over to you.
Thanks, Anastasios. So I'm just going to touch on something a bit different from what has been discussed about industry partnerships. Monash collaborates with NVIDIA across various fronts, but more relevant to the discussion today is the data science and AI's collaboration with NVIDIA on 2 fronts here. The first is the NVIDIA Deep Learning Institute. So this is a public, well-advertised program by NVIDIA that focuses on deep learning education with professionals in the space. You might have already heard of the DLI. You can look up the website via the link provided in these slides here. This Deep Learning Institute is a collection of workshop material, among other things, that includes self-paced courses that you can either pay to attend or access them for free online. And on the other hand, we have instructor-led workshops in which a certified instructor is brought into a classroom to teach on a certain topic. And one of the advantages of taking advantage of this training program is that NVIDIA has developed not just the teaching material, but also provides the GPU cloud support that helps facilitate the exercises in these workshops. And the data science and AI platform is looking to collaborate with the DRI to bring these training materials and exercises into our training programs. On the second front is DRI++. Now, DRI++ is an informal name. This is a separate informal version of the DRI that is not advertised on the web. So it's more of an insider thing. But I've certainly gotten permission from NVIDIA to talk about this program because they're definitely interested to reach out across various universities to collaborate on training activities. So the DRI++ has a slightly different approach from DRI in the sense that if you like to run a course via the Deep Learning Institute, you need to get your trainers certified through the formal processes to run workshops anywhere. With DRI++, the format is slightly different. DRI++ provides us with the training material. They provide train the trainer events to upskill our internal trainers. And then we can then use these materials. We are able to edit the materials as we wish, to the most part, and then to run these events, these courses in our local institutions. And NVIDIA is providing this course material and instructor training at no charge. The downside to this is that, well, we don't have the convenience of NVIDIA Cloud GPUs. But I think the idea behind this program is for us to not just upskill ourselves in providing the training material and training content to our community, but also helps enable our HPC centers to run these training courses on HPC in our institutions. So if you'd like to find out more about DRI++, feel free to drop me an email, and I'll put you in touch with the team behind this program. So just a very quick update from me. I'm handing back to you, Anastasios.
Thanks a lot, Titus. And I would like to thank all our speakers today. Nick, Kim, Daria, Kamathi, Catherine, Jingbo, and Mayun, and you, Titus, for presenting all these beautiful initiatives and all the things that are happening around ML training and ML initiatives. So the next part that we would like to do is to discuss a bit about the challenges and try to focus a bit more on actions and how we can approaches to solve these challenges. So I'm gonna focus on the training community. So these are some of the challenges that I identified in the first meeting. And in particular in the training community challenges, we identified ML expertise in trainers, ML expertise in training development, high demand for ML training, community awareness of tools and libraries, effectively using tools and libraries, tuning performance on high performance computing, lack of forums to share experiences, and domain expertise. So I would like to, I know that we are around 30 people, and we're going to have a few coordinators who can help us. So I would like to focus a bit on the expertise, on the trainers and training development, and also like how we can map and raise awareness, like all these like courses that we're delivering, and raise awareness about like what is happening. So Tarun shared in the chat a Google Doc, and I would like to ask Gulam, Titus, and Daria to jump in one of the breakout rooms. So Tarun, if you can create 3 breakout rooms to break into 3 rooms and discuss individually as groups all these challenges that we face in training. And then we can come back to summarize and discuss a bit what came up from the subgroups. So I would suggest coming back at 2:30, so 20 minutes.
Together at intersect.
Yeah. Okay. So thanks, Tarun. So is that our group? So in the Google Doc, what we'll do is we'll create a section for this breakout room, and okay. And what we can do is, in terms of the format, what we can discuss the challenges and how everyone's experience in this breakout room is around the challenges which were outlined, or any other challenges if you have faced in machine learning training, or being in the training community of machine learning. What I would suggest is, if we can quickly, in interest of everyone's participation, if we can quickly go around the room and introduce ourselves and share your experience or around the challenges you have faced in the machine learning training around these different aspects. So what I'll also do is okay. So I'll go around. Mark, why don't you start, given that you have experience and I know a familiar face who is involved in training community.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Gulam. So yeah, Mark Crow, I'm with QSIF in Brisbane. So my role involves, among other things, coordinating all the training activities that QSIF runs for its member organisations, which are the 7 Queensland universities. So we're running something approaching 100 workshops a year for 2,500 people. Yeah, there is a lot of demand for machine learning in that. Here, the 2 biggest problems we've had. One has been getting access to good quality training material. That's obviously changing as the machine learning accelerated. Sorry, I can never remember the title of the project, but the ARDC machine learning project based out of UQ and Monash, as that produces training material. So that is helping. The real problem we have, and I think Kamarthi or Daria touched on this one, is just trying to hold on to people, or even get hold of people and then keep them with the experience and knowledge to deliver training in machine learning. We've had a couple of PhD students and we do a lot of our training with PhD students helping out, and as well as our in-house team. But yeah, they're getting snapped up by employers as soon as they finish their PhDs. So yeah, that shortage of training instructors is really our biggest challenge.
And I can definitely relate to that, because at Intersect we are sharing the same, we are having the same experience, and currently we are on a hiring spree of trainers who have some background in ML, and we had 5 applications out of 4. Out of those 5, 4 already had some other job by the time we came to interview. That's the level of demand, and I'm kidding you not. I mean, that's exactly what happened. So that's the level of demand of people with machine learning skills. Yes. So thanks, Ingrid, that you're already putting things in and notes in the Google Doc. If you want to reflect quickly on what is your experience over the years, because I know that you have been involved in digital humanities training and some work around,
So I am not a machine learning trainer, although I have tinkered, but I'm very conscious of, I guess, all the work that's been done thus far, and having come in with fresh eyes and seeing more in the way of courses and more in the way of what I would call domain orientation, which is really fantastic. And I should say that I was the dummy that did HPC for WIMPs. I was the dummy at Intersect for that course. And so I guess from outside in, it looks like there's maturing and growth, which is fantastic. And I come in with a particular interest for humanities, arts and social sciences, because I think a lot of the pathways for researchers in these domains are not clear into these courses, and it may not stack up in terms of evidence. It would be really interesting to know how many researchers you get from those domains. But I think there's a fantastic opportunity there to target and market to those domains with what is already there, basically. And that's not a trainer's challenge, it's actually a communications and marketing challenge. But I guess I just wanted to reflect the fact that like I saw the Sydney Informatics Hub and I thought, God, look at the array of courses. And I haven't looked at Intersect's. I can see a fantastic opportunity to stitch up different courses and package them and market them towards groups of researchers that are coming through PhD and postdoc work who would like to do more. So I guess it's an encouragement that I think you can expand your reach once you manage to get trainers. And I'm ready for a conversation on that front anytime.
Yeah, and believe me, it's a hard thing to do. At La Trobe, so I was e-research analyst at La Trobe, and now in this e-research services manager role, I can see across all the universities. When we are trying to tinker the course to suit suit humanities or social science or other communities, it's hard. So we try to involve professors from there who know, because we do not want to say that we know the area. So you're right. Okay, so I'll go how we are on the screen. So Tarun, do you wanna just contribute quickly and say something around the challenges which you have seen?
Yeah, so prior to working here at the data science and AI platform at Monash, I've also worked with data fluency at Monash as an associate instructor. And as an associate instructor, I was instructing as well as developing content for newer workshops. And it's very evident that if I'm developing a content, my intention of conveying a particular topic is different And when I see someone else instruct it, there's a gap between that knowledge gap, what I can call it as. So that's something which I see. So I'm not sure if it can be addressed or if it needs extra attention from the instructors to, or extra effort from the instructors to communicate with the person who developed the content. Yeah, that's something which I feel like is there an issue.
Tarun, that's why I was the dummy for HPC for WIMPs, because I'd never done HPC. I've worked with technology, and I think it's a real challenge. And I'm delighted to say that the course was kind of logically structured such that I could work through it, but it was the way that that got tested. But I think it's a real trap because you become so kind of involved with what you're doing. And in teaching, there's often external evaluation. But I think it's a real challenge.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that it also brings forth the point which we are trying to grapple with internally at Intersect as well, now that our training is growing and our casual trainer community is growing. That train the trainer is one thing. So you run the train the trainer sessions, but then continually keeping in touch with trainers and doing the refreshers with them and making sure that they are, so because over time, so I was a trainer as well in my, way before, casual trainer with Intersect as well at one point. And over time, somebody has selected the whole thing, and that makes me nervous. Over over a period of time, your training habits can change as well. And the first time you gave the course and now could be completely different. And your head, you might be doing it better, but it might be going in the opposite direction from attendees' perspective, right? Because you are getting comfortable with the material and you are doing it faster, and it could really over time worsen in a way as well. Yeah, that's absolutely valid point. And within Intersect, we're trying to trial a few things, that whether it's good idea to have a refresher training of trainers every 6 months or so. Even though all ERAs are there in the training and they keep the feedback all the time, but I think doing something with the trainers and keep doing something with trainers is really good as well. Okay, so on my screen, so next is Suresh. Suresh, if you have anything you wanna just speak up, or if you have any experience, introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Suresh. I'm from India. I'm working on genomics, so bacterial genomics. Genomics nowadays, due to technology, it is increasing huge data. So main thing is lack of facilities, and I am from non-technical background, so now I'm learning programming and all, but I'm not that much proficient. That the programming skills, lack of facilities are bit. To these Australia, some programs, biocommons, those programs may introduce some programming skills. Like these webinars, trainings, I'm learning through. So if one programs will help people like us to learn more.
Yeah, 100%, absolutely right. And
machine learning will give it is new to scientific community. If it give means it will minimize the gap and focus more enhancively towards probable options to the scientific community, like drug designing, any insights over specific issue.
Yeah.
So modules to related to specific, these things will help us.
Yes, and I think Biocommons is doing excellent work in that way. They are essentially customizing the modules to the requirements of specific area, and I think that's really they're really doing great work. Yeah, thanks for that. Akari, if I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
Yes, that's correct. Correctly pronounced. Maybe I can try to put my face there. Oh, hello.
Yeah,
hello there. So I'm a PhD student at RMIT and also a committee members at the Combine, the subcommittee of the Australian Bioinformatics and Computational Biology Society. It's a bit mouthful, but I'm here just because we were, during the last meeting last week, we talked about maybe we should do a kind of training session on machine learning for students. And we are like, no, I don't know about that. But, some of the committee members actually are kind of prepared to, I guess, whip up a presentation. And so, I guess we are, fairly new to sort of training, delivering training or like even the knowledge of machine learning. But I guess I think we as a students we are quite interested in machine learning, but we are actually not sure where to start. And then the concept is great, but we just haven't really seen how many trainings actually are available at Intersect maybe, or other institutions have actually have organized quite a few training sessions. So we actually didn't know that has been happening. So yeah, I suppose I can't really comment too much on challenges we're experiencing because we haven't really delivered. But it has been very interesting to hear that the challenges we may anticipate when we start delivering a training, if we can organize one at some stage.
That does point to a challenge for us, right? that's a challenge to do the communication right and have the right pathways so that someone who is starting out, they're looking at ML, looking to start learning ML, there should be some pathways, and that goes back to what Ingrid was mentioning as well, that pathways where somebody comes in, they know that, okay, how to start and where to go from there, and essentially some place where they can find all this information as well.
Yeah.
And communication is a big challenge as well as you mentioned. That there's not lots of awareness on what is happening.
Yeah, that's right. I think students would be very keen to get to know more about machine learning, but yeah, just there's no sort of information in front of them. So I guess that some sort of clear communication, like advertising, or such as I don't know, we as a Combine can participate in advertising training for the machine learning, if that happens in the next couple months, perhaps, to trying to bring the students, HDL students to start learning.
Yeah. That's good. Thanks, Akari.
Thank you.
No worries. Nargis.
Yeah, Nargis. Can you hear me?
Nargis. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm actually a PhD student who's just getting into using these sort of methods. So I can't really offer a perspective on the challenges of running trainings, but I can offer, I guess, difficulties on the other side. And so the reason why I'm actually here in this meeting is because I'm trying to find resources where I can learn the sort of things I want to learn. So I've already started using machine learning in my PhD research, where I'm taking these really large 3D images of human tissue, and I have my supervisors actually generated models. And so to learn how to use it, I've kind of been looking up extra resources of how to get it into understanding machine learning and also Python. So that's the main reason I'm here. So I guess the challenge for me is that knowing where to go to get proper courses and training in these sort of areas.
Yeah, and that points me to, like, one of the challenge which was mentioned in last meeting was finding out the tools and libraries specific to your area. So given that we have some PhD students and some practitioners as well, so I think that challenge might be, like, more close to heart for you guys. So what is your experience on, like, finding tools and libraries that are relevant to your areas? Are you able to find them?
So at the moment, it's kind of just accessing resources my supervisor has given me. At the moment, the models we run is through Google Colab and also ImageJ, PG, because basically the stuff I'm doing is bioimage analysis. And so kind of just like looking at the forums for, like on the forum of ImageJ, and kind of just doing my own sort of research. But I just feel like there's no like go-to place, I guess, to find everything I need, which is why at the moment I have to use like different image analysis products.
Yeah. So thank you very much. So that was excellent discussion. I think some really useful challenges and perspectives from student sides have come to fore as well. Yes. So I think it's time to leave the breakout room. So Nargis, could you please add that, as Ingrid said, in the document as well? I think that would be really good. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for your participation. Sorry to put you guys on the spot.
No, that was interesting. Thanks, everyone.
Let's go back. Cheers.
Are we still in the same room?
No, we're back to the main room now.
Right. Sorry, I've lost my audio. So technical issues. All right. So I would like to ask all the coordinators to talk about what was discussed in each breakout room. So I'm going to start with Titus.
Right. Thanks, Anastasios. And thanks for, I'm not sure who helped me took notes because I could not multitask on my single screen. So yeah, we covered two main topics. The first is the recruitment and retainment of trainers, either lead instructors or teaching assistants, and the second topic was about the development of training material. So so with regards to the recruitment of trainers, one of the ideas mentioned was that every time we have a recruitment process, there'll be some applicants that get accepted, but unfortunately also some applicants that get rejected purely because we do not have the number of spots available for recruitment. And I think what could be useful is then to pool these people who have interest in the roles, but across institutions together, so that everybody have access to these expertise if they need to. Another problem we talked about was the lack of a career path in teaching. A lot of people join the teaching of these workshops as students, and unfortunately, it's often seen as a temporary role that goes on for a few weeks or a few months, and they stop this role when they finish their studies. It's probably more of a institutional problem in the way we structured these teaching as a profession, but longer term contracts for people who are interested in teaching these units longer term would definitely be helpful. And also, we mentioned about cross-institutional roles. So we could have the model where each individual, given this era of Zoom workshops, we could have instructors that teach not just at one location or one university, but across multiple institutions. With regards to our second topic about training, development training content. Sorry, just one very important point that I neglected to mention is that we had a comment about to say that someone who is naturally good in machine learning or deep learning is not necessarily a good trainer. So it does not mean that you just go out and pluck some deep learning or machine learning expertise and make them trainers. Training needs to come with interest, passion, but also experience and know-how. With regards to the development of training content, it was mentioned that the development of content with the one-size-fits-all approach doesn't work very well, because every instructor presents a slide that is basically a storyline, a way of telling a story, and every instructor presents differently. So it is important to have a collaborative process in developing this training material if they were to be shared across multiple instructors. I think that's a summary of what we have discussed. Back to you, Anastasios.
Perfect. Gulam, over to you.
Yeah, very, very interesting discussion, and we had a very varied group with different experiences. So the one thing which was reflected in multiple points was that we have very generalized training material, and it is a challenge to customize it to specific needs of different disciplines, and then not only customizing the training materials, the marketing material, where how you market different trainings to different groups, so that it makes sense for different groups, not only for STEM but for other disciplines and HAS community as well. And another aspect also which came out was developing discipline-specific pathways. So some PhD students reflected that it's not always clear when they want to learn machine learning tools and techniques that where to start. So if there are some clear pathways, and then there are resources against those pathways, which possibly this community can help, would be really good as well. And then there was a challenge around lack of facilities and guidance for someone who's just starting. That was also raised, and I thought this one was really interesting. The knowledge gap between training development and actual training delivery. So when training was developed, so one person developed training, and then it is delivered by multiple different trainers. How the training, what message was being, or how the training developer was trying to deliver the message was totally different from how training was being delivered. So what was reflected was that training the trainer is one thing, but then continuing that connection and continuing that refresher is something which is really needed as well. Then the other thing was the high turnover that we all have seen, and I think one suggestion was that career paths for ML trainers would really help in that particular to address that particular challenge. And the other aspect was that there is no one specific area or forum where machine learning PhD students or people who are starting machine learning, they can go and find all these resources. So that's it.
Thanks, Gulam. Over to you, Daria.
Thanks, Anastasios. And I wanted to also give a shout out to whoever in my group took notes, because I didn't, and I'm really finding it rewarding that somebody did. Thank you. So we had a really great conversation among I'll call it a group of friends, because really we had a team that we've interacted a lot before and we're really active in the community. So, and we had a really productive discussion that had quite a few points that we talked about with, so one of the first things was talking about, yes, it's very hard to find people who can train. And the question is also, what expertise do we have versus what expertise does our community need? And something we shared was, so for example, is Horovod something that's used in machine learning? Is that too advanced for the community? Is that just right for my community? Does my trainer know this? Is it a relevant topic? And similarly, an interesting thing we found is that, for example, I have a lot of demand for R training, our machine learning training, less so for Python. Pawsey has the opposite situation. They have a lot of demand for Python, not a lot for R. So it's very same country, similar communities you'd think, but no, not quite. Another thing we have, we talked about is about this notion of getting experts to develop some of this content, because as we get more and more people who need specific aspects of machine learning, because it's too huge a field to have one training in, we'd like people who are experts. And we talked about who the experts that we might want actually are, discussing that when we think of an expert, we usually think of a prof in the university context, but for a lot of this training, profs actually are not who we want, both from their KPIs perspective and from our learners' perspectives. And PhD students in the field might be the sweet spot that they have the deep domain expertise, and yet they're not as far abstracted away in the research base as professors, so they could actually really help the rest of our researchers, and it would be a good experience for them. But a lot of us struggle, we struggle to recruit them, both, COVID limits on hiring casuals, and some of them would do it for free, but we don't necessarily want people providing training us for free, because it's something that we should be rewarding people. And the other option is we have trainers who are training in something, but they don't feel they have the expertise in it, and they're not practicing it every day. They're more doing HPC support, but they're training in machine learning because that's what the community needs, but they don't feel necessarily comfortable because they're not actually practicing it on a daily basis. So that's another source of tension from a trainer perspective. Something else that we talked about is that when we offer training, we don't necessarily have, so some training organizations don't have an overview of what training is out there. So people will come to a deep learning training and sit through it, but they don't actually need deep learning. They might need reinforcement learning or classical machine learning or classic statistics, but they don't know that until they come into the training. So that's a source of tension that we have in the community and haven't necessarily addressed. And finally, we also talked about something that was missing from the slide and we agreed on, so from your slide, Anastasios, which was the training around working with real world messy data and data cleaning and data sort of sanity, and really either gathering appropriate data for ML or wrangling your data to be appropriate for ML. Something that we all realize that needs to happen, but something that most training out there doesn't have or provide. So that's another gap, I guess, in the space, that belongs on the challenges for meeting one. It really is for the researcher compute is not only access to compute, it's actually knowledge and skills and access to data, or cleaning that data. So it's not only the advanced concepts, for a lot of people, it's those initial getting my data right concepts. So that, I think, that's what we covered in our group. And yes, I'm happy to elaborate or expand on any of those if anybody would like to know more.
Thanks, Daria. Quickly, I'm gonna say what happened in our breakout room, because we're running late during the whole meeting. So we were discussing a bit more about having Christina there from Biocommons, describing a bit more about scalability and how you can scale up training and delivering it at scale, having multiple trainers in different locations and how this can work. Also mentioning that it's a lot of people are very, very interested in learning machine learning. So there is a lot of need for this step, for the getting started things. However, then there is, we were discussing about one of the big challenges around trainers is as everybody mentioned, that finding the right trainers is super challenging, because you can find someone who is an expert in machine learning, but being an expert in the theory behind the scenes and the knowledge behind the scenes is needed. So it's not just like you need to know how to be a practitioner and know how to apply the tools, but having the knowledge of like how the statistics behind the scenes are working and sharing all this knowledge is important as well, because like at the end of the day, you're sharing knowledge. So we find that like there should be a lot of careful consideration, like when hiring people or when have and try to build the community of trainers, like on this aspect as well. And then also like touching like what Daria mentioned about, you know, it's challenging because people cannot identify if what the models produced is a correct output. And then before they go to publications, there were a few comments about like having forums where you can share this kind of information a bit, just to discuss what the other people like feel in the space. And like Christina mentioned also like about something that's happening there as well in terms of bioinformatics. So this is a quick overview of what discussed. So we have 15 minutes, so I'm gonna hand over to Kioa to discuss about trainers, and over to you.
Yeah, okay. I might share my screen so we can see the slide, because I did write some notes down. Present button. So I think something which is really interesting is today we have a room full of people who are either trainers or training adjacent. We've got people in here who work for HPC facilities like I do that still end up helping out with machine learning training, for example. But it's really rare that we actually all get in a room like this as trainers specifically in machine learning specifically and talk to each other about what's going on. And this is really interesting because it sort of drives at some of the challenges we do have, is that machine learning is still viewed as a specialized skill or an intermediate skill. You need to have computer science skills, you need to have Python skills, you probably need to have TensorFlow or PyTorch or R skills. And so there's a lot you need to know before you can go give training. And I think everyone in this room would probably empathize with that, being that we're from such different organizations and such different backgrounds and research backgrounds and educational backgrounds. So this is a massive challenge that I see as part of the training community, is that we have lots of people delivering training with such diverse backgrounds. It's almost impossible to get us all in a room like this, talking to each other about things. It also makes it really difficult to find new trainers. So we're all from organizations, and I think I've met almost everyone in this room before, which is awesome. How do I find someone who I haven't talked to before about machine learning training to learn from them? So I learned recently that University of Melbourne, for example, so they've got a HPC team and then their data analytics platform. The data analytics platform is really public with the sort of training they offer, but within the HPC team, they offer some high-level training on things like multi-GPU, which is really relevant to this community. I can't see that. So that again makes things really difficult for me, because I can't tap UniMelb on the shoulder and say, hey, you guys have training that we would love to repurpose or borrow or actually train our own staff in, which is why something like Dresser coming together is extremely important. So I can tap UniMelb on the shoulder, but again, knowing they're the right people to contact is its own barrier. So this is something that I notice in our community, is that I don't know what exists and I don't know who I should be talking to who's not already in this room. So Dresser is one solution that I've put forward here. How else do we get trainers together in rooms like this more often? This community of practice is not 100% about training. How do we solve these problems? So I might open up the room to discussion and thoughts on, you know, the challenges putting together a community of trainers, because I think we've already touched on some of these points. Is the ML training community different to the normal training community is another point I think that's quite interesting.
Yeah, just to mention there, thanks, Kioa. I mean, like all really interesting points. Just to mention that one of the 4 communities that were developed based on what was prioritized in ARDC Skills Summit last year was the trainer and the community of trainers. But I don't know, personal feeling and personal experience, I can see these two things a bit like, it's different to ask and find a community of trainers who can teach like really intro level, like basic level of something. And I still include this one as you said, like I'm one of the people viewing machine learning as a specialized skill. So, and I can see it from the trainers that recently hiring 6 trainers, and we couldn't find anybody with these skills. So, and many CVs. So yes, so I can feel that it's 2 separate communities and dealing with this in a different way.
Not to mention the applications which had some ML related experience. By the time we came to interview, they were already hired. So we got some applications, and by the time we wanted to interview, they were hired.
Yeah. So in terms of Kiowa's point, I don't know if we kind of get to an agreement, but it doesn't have to be one single community of practice. In my opinion, there's a training community of practice which already exists. There's a ML focus group which already sits here, and both will have members overlapping, right? So it's more about now finding ways to, it doesn't have to be community coming together. It's about knowing who to reach out to. If I know that someone is doing reinforcement learning, okay, I know you exactly. So can I just come and speak, have one-on-one conversation and see how we can bring more people on board and start looking at it. So there are a couple of things which I want to highlight there, right? So for example, there's a deep learning on HPC training development that has been happening. Monash UQ, POSI and NCI have been working together. I'm not sure if it's my audio which is recording. Okay, so my reflection from that is, if that has worked out, where we created a group which can co-develop training and co-deliver training as well, so they can now all these 4 groups can go and deliver probably deliver in their own institutions. Can we identify such future trainings and create those small groups, come together, specifically focus on one particular training topic and develop it together, go and deliver, and then obviously more the trainers can come on board to train future people. But then reflecting back on the trainers, right? So that's another whole thing. Can we create a pool of trainers? So for example, Kim here spoke about having got 10 applicants, we finalized to remaining 8, probably out of 8, 5 are employable. Can we put them in a pool so others can start leveraging that pool and see where they want to do, who they want to hire? So at least having that one pool with some sort of EOI as a live database, so we all can leverage on that pool and start employing people when and where required. Or the other option is also something that Ming Fang spoke about, to say, start thinking about, can we look at some mechanisms where we can hire cross-organizational trainers? Can be based in one organization, but if there's a commitment that, for example, if QSIF wants to do, I'm certain that I need one person, one day in a month, just doing ML for us. So if we can pull all these requirements together and find ways to employ someone who can work across organizations, that's something which we can definitely explore, at least more in terms of having that common skill available for delivery across organizations. And we can explore more in terms of modes of employing. What are the possible options? Can we cost recover? Can we just base the person in one organization and go and deliver across, specifically now that we're doing everything remotely? So it's more about now identifying what is that key challenge that we want to solve. Can we come together and discuss about the possible approaches to solve it?
I think you're right, Kamathi. There is a huge need for somewhere where you can find all these people and where you can have all the profiles together. You can identify what's going on. With Catherine, like working in the metadata fields, we really want to move forward and have like Dressa being like the place where like we can have like people registering like as trainers and then identifying like who is doing what. I don't think this is the first priority, of course, but it's part of the roadmap for sure to do and have it there. But there should be for sure like a way before we go ahead and we have something like a place where we can add all these people, like to do something beforehand, because the need for trainers is already there. And until we have a more permanent solution, like we need a forum for sure, like to start like having all these trainers together.
I'd like to highlight Daria's left an excellent comment in the chat about the fact that most trainers aren't training every single day of the week. And so if they get a job offer to train 2 days a week or a full-time job offer from Coles, they're not going to pick the 2-day-a-week uncertain job. It's a really good point. It's difficult to, I mean, I'm sure there's lots of people here who deliver training where that's not their full-time job to do training. They just sort of fall into it as part of their organization.
I agree. I agree. Even though if you put ML in your CV, probably you're not going to end up in Coles. You're going to end up with something different. But because it's
Coles
such
has
a change.
flybys. Coles has a great ML team.
Oh, you mean in terms of the analytics of Coles?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, yeah. I'm not talking about.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not talking about stacking shelves at Coles. I'm talking about flybys data.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm wondering whether we can learn anything from bioinformatics, because I'm feeling this is very similar to what we had in bioinformatics about 10 years ago. It was a specialist, it was an intermediate skill. You couldn't do things like you can do with Galaxy now. It was all command line. You had to learn how to install software, and it was 2 weeks of training courses were 1 or 2 weeks at EBI. And likewise, the trainers were getting snapped up by the banks and everyone else because they were Perl programmers. And I honestly can't remember how we got through that, and whether there was a solution, or whether we just muddled through it until we reached critical mass and then everything sort of settled down. But yeah, if anyone sort of was around at that time and can think of some of the solutions we came up with then for dealing with bioinformatics training, can we apply those now?
Have we though, Mark?
Well, it's much easier to find bioinformatics training. I mean, I'm not losing bioinformatics trainers at the same rate I lose machine learning trainers. I can get people up to speed to run a Galaxy training workshop in a day if they are a PhD molecular biologist. Machine learning, there's just a lot more skills needed than there were, and those people are moving on faster than the biologists are.
But maybe that's a critical mass thing, Mark.
It may be, Nick, yeah.
That there are so many people around doing bioinformatics where a substantial component of their job as a researcher is doing bioinformatics, even if they're not a core bioinformatics person. That I think there's probably enough people around now that you don't have the problem there anymore. Whereas machine learning just hasn't achieved that critical mass yet.
Yeah, but did we do anything in bioinformatics that we can learn from to achieve that critical mass faster? I think that's really what we're
suggesting. The university sector might have actually thought about things and organised them well.
Yeah. Okay. Point taken.
Yeah.
I mean, also bioinformatics is a bit more focused than machine learning. Machine learning is quite broad, can be quite broad. So that depends on the kind of content that you want to deliver, like a broad overall machine learning course, or something which focuses in, which is more specific for domains. That would affect it as well.
I mean, I think, yeah, maybe that's one thing. I mean, the bioinformatics training currently, I think most of what you're doing on is domains. You'll be doing a particular topic. And so, yeah, maybe that's where we need to be looking.
Yeah, but you won't be doing bioinformatics in engineering or arts or...
No, but you'll be doing specific aspects of biology. So, yeah, I think maybe a lot of the Python stuff still is introductory and general. Yeah, there's Titus and his Kamathi have done a natural language processing one. Is there, Nick has visualization? Should we be focusing our efforts on those specific areas rather than general training?
And how much of the training is going to be teaching people how to do machine learning as opposed to how to apply their machine learning knowledge to the computers and tools and things that we have? If we're going to be teaching them a bit about machine learning as well, your bioinformatics trainers aren't going to be teaching people biology, right, or protein-protein interaction. That's assumed knowledge, whereas machine learning is so new that people will be coming to the courses without enough machine learning is what I worry about.
So I think focusing on something like visualization or natural language processing might work, but you're assuming the researcher already knows what the right ML tool is to solve their problem. And a lot of the time researchers come to training courses and they throw some stuff at a wall and see if maybe it works or maybe it doesn't work. They don't know. They have no idea if deep learning is the right tool, or if they should be looking at image processing, or what that word is that they should be looking for. That's another problem, again, that's sort of in this too general or too specific problem. I have to head off because I've been in meetings for like 6 hours and I've got another one, but this has been really productive, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Yoa. I think before we finish, I think we should focus on two things: actions, and to have something targeted for next time, and also like to talk a bit about the next meeting. And I'm gonna hand over to Kamathi and Tarun. But before I ask Tarun and Kamathi to talk, I think there is a really big need for some actions, to have some targeted objectives for this group. This way, like, we can focus more and more on what is needed. And I think one of the two things that are needed at the moment are, first, like, to have, like what Kamath suggested, like how we can bring all these like people together and have a pool of trainers, especially in these topics. It would be extremely useful. And as Intersect, we're definitely happy to explore this option and how this can work. To be honest, we, for the first time recently, we added all our instructors on our website. This way everybody can see like who's teaching, what their expertise is, and all this. This way, like, people can find all these trainers. But also there is a need for mapping, because we're talking about like, okay, what's available in image processing, what is available in the generic other end of the spectrum. So there is a need also like to sit down, and I want to share the last slide that Kamathi put together, and it's a very interesting one. So if I present again this one. So this is all the training that is already available, and Kamathi put it together. So there are a lot of training courses happening, if you can see this thing. So mapping what is available and thinking a bit more like strategically of what the gaps are at the moment and what we can do all together in order to fill these gaps. That would be also another good idea, I think. So over to you, Kamathi or Tarun, who would like to speak about next meeting. And
yeah, thanks, Anastasios. I think since we're running out of time, we can put together some of the outcomes from today and then call for some sort of actions offline, not something which will have long-term working groups or anything, but something quickly. Can we create a pool of practitioners, something which we all can do offline? So maybe Anastasios, myself and Tarun would work together to put something in terms of the actions and come back to you all. Yeah. In terms of, I think the training mapping is all part of it, which we can discuss offline on emails. I will pass it to Tarun to speak about the next set of events and meetings before we wind up. Thanks.
Yep. Thanks, Anastasios, for sharing the slides. So these are the events which will be happening next. In terms of the next meeting, we'll be focusing on ML services on HPC. Again, I'll be sending an email to ask who will be happy to chair this meeting as well. And we are conducting, we are organizing these showcase events. These are a series of 3 events which will be happening, where we'll have researchers who will present their work. And I'll be sending more details regarding the showcase events soon. Next slide.
And quick question, Tarun, yep. These are open to everybody, the showcases? Showcase
yes.
Events? Okay,
yes.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So it's a 3-series showcase. So we've got one every month or so, which is open for everyone. In fact, even call for participation is also open. If any of your users are interested to present, that's also open invitation.
Yep. Please do subscribe to ML4EU, and you'll be hearing more about these events, and I'll be sharing the registration links as well. And if you would like to be involved, you can express your interest here. I can put this link on the chat. Yeah, that's all for today. If there's anything else we need to add, like Komati, otherwise.
I think we're already over time by 5 minutes. Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Yes.
Thank you all for joining.
And sorry for being and running late.
Interesting discussions. Thanks, everyone.
It's a great event. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thanks, Jimbo.